We are live streaming now. Thank you.
Alrighty. Well, then it is my pleasure to welcome everybody to the November 24th annual organization board meeting of the Edmonton Metro Transit Services Commission. And it is my honor to call the meeting to order at 3:06 p.m. Let me just give you a couple of notes before we get into the meeting itself. Everybody on the call should be reminded that we are recording this meeting. It is being live streamed on YouTube for the public. And due to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic restrictions, board members are each in their respective homes or places of work for the duration of this recording. And it is also a pleasure to welcome any and all guests and viewers who may be viewing this organizational meeting of the board today, and who may be watching the recording later on. Before every meeting, we start off with a very important statement, and that statement is such that on behalf of the board, we would like to acknowledge the traditional land which we are virtually gathered today as Treaty 6. We would like to thank the diverse Indigenous peoples whose ancestors' footsteps have marked this territory for centuries, such as Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Nakota and Blackfoot peoples. We also acknowledge that this as the Métis homeland and the home of the largest concentration of Inuit south of the 60th parallel. It is a welcoming place for all peoples who come from around the world to share the Edmonton metropolitan region as a home. And it's my privilege to be able to read that at the board meetings because it's important that we do so. All right, so we have an agenda before us. There is, I want to bring to your attention on this agenda 3B, and the letter from Matt Genereux, MP for Edmonton Riverbend, is attached. And that's the only change from the agenda that you received electronically 5 days ago. So when we come to the motion to accept the agenda, there will be a revised title against that, or we will read that into the record in any case. Seeing the agenda, any additional items that anybody need? All right, seeing none, can I go to the motion page? And so that the November 24th, 2021 revised agenda be approved as presented. Would someone care to make that motion? Councillor Finstad, thank you very much, sir. Can you read that into the record?
No problem. I move the November 24th, 2021 agenda be approved as presented.
Okay, thank you very much. Using the raise the hand function, can I call the question on this motion then? All in favor? And given that there's 6 of us here, I'm counting 6 hands, and that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Okay, and we have for the consent agenda, you have a copy of the Matt Genereux letter for your information. And on the consent agenda motion today, we have the approval of the September 29th, 2021 regular board meeting, and then the letter as is before us today. So any comments, questions? Seeing none, I'll need a motion to approve the consent agenda. Someone care to make that motion?
I'll move, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Councillor Harris, do you want to read the motion into the record then, please?
Well, I think Councillor Knack was first on the draw. So
okay, sorry, Councillor Knack, go for it, please.
Sure, I'll move that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Thank you very much. Again, using the raise the hand function, go for it. All in favor? And again, I'm counting 6 hands. Thank you very much. That's unanimous. Confirmation of terms of the returning new board members. That is as was presented in our board package. And it's listed in dates of term end. According to our bylaws, you have a 2-year term. And so you can take a look at the dates down the side. Mr. Jankowski, any comments on this?
Sure, I'd be happy to provide a little bit of commentary. So when we sent the original letters out to the clerks or the legislative heads of the various municipalities, the member municipalities, we made it clear in the letters that if there was no desire on the part of the municipality to change the current member, then there was the possibility for that member to simply continue to the termination of the originally specified 2-year term from the original date of the commission being created, which resulted in a number of these being the term end dates being January of 2023 as a result. The other options were for the municipalities to nominate their members for the board for this particular commission, and we received a variety of responses in terms of A, the date of the response, and B, the term length that the board member was appointed for through the municipality. And so what you see before you on this table is the sum total of all of the end dates that are either due to the original end of term of the original board member or the end of term as specified by the municipality appointing the member. So we have transcribed all of them, and as Chair Broadhead, as you indicated, we've listed at the top the earliest ending term and the latest ending term being that of you, Mr. Chair, November 15th, 2023. So that is the sum total of the information that we've received from the municipalities. I will say that according to our governance bylaw, and Mr. Shores can comment on this, according to the governance bylaw, we do require a certified true copy of the resolution that from the municipality. Those are trickling in, but based on all the information that we have collected from the municipalities, these are the end dates that were specified by their respective councils.
Okay, thank you. Any questions? Councillor Harris?
Yeah, I don't think it needs to be very complicated. In our situation, council appoints basically for 1 year, and it goes from organizational meeting to organizational meeting. So that's kind of where ours came from. And I suspect some of the other members are in the same boat. It's just the posture that our council has always taken. That doesn't mean that we wouldn't likely see a continuation of my membership potentially beyond the first year, but it's a year-to-year sort of thing. It's just ultimately what we do within the context of our appointments to boards, committees, and commissions.
Fair enough. Thank you. And I suspect there are others like that as well. In my community, it's kind of a hodgepodge based on a number of things. But it's one is 2 years, 2 or 4 years, and the rest are single year appointments as well. So in any case, that's before us. And now we need a motion to confirm the terms of the returning new board members. So given that there was no questions, is there someone that would care to make this motion? May I call on you, Councillor Harris?
Yes. Okay. I'm so excited. That's an emotion. So with that in mind, I would move that the terms of returning the new board members be confirmed as presented.
All right. Any commentary, Councillor Harris?
No, I'm glad to see so many people coming back. I think it's crucial we maintain some continuity in our decision making going forward, and we obviously have a very experienced group of folks here, and I think we're looking forward to continuing on our journey.
Thank you very much. Anyone else care to speak on this motion? Seeing none, I'll call a question using the raise hand function. All in favor? And I see 6. Thank you very much. That's approved unanimously. Now we get to the one of the parts of today's meeting, and that is to do the administration of the nomination selection process of the various officers of the commission and of the board. And so what we have asked Mr. Shores to do, Shores Jardine, is to administrate the nomination selection process for the position of chair, vice chair, audit and finance committee membership, HR and committee membership, and the positions of chair and vice chair of each of the 2 committees. So, Mr. Shores, if I might turn the microphone over to you, and we'll leave it up to you to walk us through this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I propose to deal with the nomination and selection of the chair first, complete that process, then move to the vice chair, and then go to the committee. So I'll do them separately, and you'll have motions after each as contemplated by the package. In terms of the chair and the vice chair, and essentially I'll follow the same route for all, although I suspect we'll be able to truncate it for the membership of the Audit and Finance Committee and the HR and Compensation Committee. The process will be as follows. I will invite nominations for the position of chair. Any director, including the current chair, may be nominated. Directors may nominate themselves. After the nomination process, I will confirm that each nominee accepts the nomination. If there is only one nominee, I will confirm the selection will be by acclamation. In that case, I will ask a director to move the appropriate motion, bearing in mind that I have no specific role other than administration of this process. So it still lies in your hands, and the motion is included in the package. It will be that so-and-so be selected as chair of the board of directors of the Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Services Commission. If there is more than one nominee, I will invite each nominee to make a short presentation, 5 minutes max, if they wish. Following the presentation, I will ask each of you in public who you wish to select as chair. There's no way of doing it simply by hands in that sort of scenario. At the completion of that process, I will announce the name of the director who the board will by motion select as chair, and then you'll adopt the motion. So in essence, I am running a poll that leads you to a motion is how it will work. Any questions before we begin? Mr. Chair, I then propose to proceed. Are there any nominations for the position of chair?
I
Mr.
nominate-
Shores,
Oops.
Mr. Shores, I wish to nominate Wes Broadhead for the position of chair, please.
Thank you. Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Mr. Broadhead, do you accept the nomination?
I do, sir.
I confirm that there being no other nominees, Mr. Broadhead is selected by acclamation. I would ask that the appropriate motion be put on the screen for a member of the board to move.
Mr. Shores, I will move that Wes Broadhead be selected as the chair of the board of directors for the Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Services Commission.
Thank you. Will the members please vote on that motion? By hand will be fine. I'm not seeing Councillor Finstad. He's frozen. we may just want to wait.
He's frozen with such an entertaining look. Quick, somebody screenshot. Oh, it's too late. Oh, wait, this is on YouTube. Welcome everyone on YouTube. Hopefully somebody grabbed that.
Mr. Chair, I propose that we wait until Councillor Finstead rejoins the meeting.
Fair enough. Paul, you had a comment?
Mr. Chair, just to take you back just to the very start of Mr. Shore's dissertation. I'm not sure how pertinent this is. We did have a motion prepared to have the board direct that that Bill Shores administer the nomination selection process. I'm not sure, Mr. Shores, whether that's absolutely necessary for legal reference. I'll leave that up to you as to whether this motion needs to be approved or not.
I think it would be wise to approve it just for perfection's sake. I don't think you need to wait for Councillor Finstead to vote on this motion, and that this motion will then proceed. I see Councillor Finstead is back.
Yeah, my connection, I apologize.
We've lost him again.
I concur.
I heard I concur.
My raised hand function's not working.
All right. Councillor Finstead, while you were gone, Mr. Jankowski reminded us that there was a motion that was required for nomination, for me to administer the nomination selection process. Maybe we can just have everyone put their hands down again, and then we'll vote on that motion. Can somebody move that motion? This is simply for me to administer the nomination.
Happy to move that motion that Mr. Shores administer the nomination process. As, oh, there it is. Yes, that the Willing Shores from Shores starting LLP administer the nomination selection process for position of chair of the commission, position of vice chair of the commission, membership of the Audit and Finance Committee, membership of the HR and Compensation Committee, and positions of chair and vice chair of each committee.
Thank you. If the members could vote on that, just to confirm that. And we've lost Councillor Finstead, but I don't think we don't need him for quorum. That is carried, Mr. Jankowski. Now we can return, once we have Councillor Finstead back, to the motion for selection of the chair, and we'd got 5/6 of the way there. So people will put their hands down, and we'll wait for Councillor Finstead to come back.
Do they have good internet in Leduc?
It's,
was very-
you know what, it's been a bit spotty today. I was on a meeting earlier and mine went in and out as well. So I'm not sure what the story is today, but.
We
That's
may
very
all
key.
have to move to Beaumont.
Well done, Gord. Well done. Thank you for putting that plug in. 10 gig, come over here. We've got no problems.
Mr. Chair, you still have quorum. I don't know
Okay.
if you want to proceed or you want to continue to wait.
Well, I think we can proceed based on the results of the vote on the chair, and I believe I heard Councillor Finstead say he concurred with the vote. The next one is a bit problematic, and I think we should wait for Mr. Finstead to try and rejoin.
Mr. Chair, I think it might be wise, just out of an abundance of caution, to ensure the vote on your selection of chair is confirmed, just so that after my appointment. So if people wouldn't mind re-voting.
Revoting on the, so if you're in favor of
The motion.
Okay.
It's the motion you're voting on. And the motion is that Wes Broadhead be selected as chair of the board of the directors of the Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Services Commission. Mr. Chair, that appears to be unanimous.
Thank you very much, sir. We're good. All right, so this one, Mr. Shores, I think we should try and get a hold of Councillor Finstad to see if he's able to rejoin us.
Thank you. Mr. Jankowski, do you have a cell number? I do not.
Yes, I'm trying to reach out to him right now.
The joys of technology. It's all great when it works real good.
Do we have any idea when we will resume in-person meetings and move away from this craziness?
As soon as practically speaking.
Isn't there something on the agenda in a little while to talk about meetings?
Yeah, for sure. There is. And for the board's consideration, for sure, we had talked about the 16th of December. However, the new place of the office of the EMTSC won't be available then. And so everybody on the call, we might want to consider whether or not we continue virtually until that happens, simply because it costs us significantly to both live stream and record from the offices or from the Chamber of Commerce building anyway.
My apologies, I'm back.
All right. There you are.
We think.
Councillor Finstad, while you were missing, we confirmed the selection of Wes Broadhead as chair. And so he will continue in the chair from this point forward, and I will defer to him in terms of moving stuff along. But at this stage, I'm inviting nominations for the position of vice chair of the board. Are there any nominations?
Yeah, I can jump in. I'm happy to
Can
nominate.
you guys hear me?
Yes.
I can't hear anything.
We can hear you, Glenn.
Okay, I can't see anybody. I can't see, oh, there's Gord.
Just be careful because we can in fact see you.
Thank you. I apologize. The whole thing just went dead on me. I don't know. You can hardly wait for that fiber optics to get hooked up to my house.
Councillor Knack.
Yes, I was just going to nominate Glenn Finstad for vice chair.
Any other nominations for vice chair of the board? Any other nominations for vice chair of the board? Seeing none, Councillor Finstad will be selected by acclamation, but we still need a motion. Chair Broadhead, could you invite a motion?
I will. Would somebody care to make that motion, Andrew?
Absolutely. There's the unmute button. I'll move that Glenn Finstad be selected as vice chair of the board of directors of the Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Services Commission.
Thank you very much. Using the raise hand function, if we could vote. And that is unanimous, Mr. Shores. Back to you, sir.
Thank you. The next role for the board is to identify and select 4 members to the Audit and Finance Committee. Ideally, they will not include the chair, simply because the role he will play in signing documents. So I think I'm going to invite nominations for identification. I think we need 4. So again, you can either nominate or identify yourself as being interested. So I'll keep track of either.
I nominate Justin Laurie.
Thank you.
I'm also interested in that particular committee as well.
Right. Anyone else?
We appoint, Mr. Shores, just a question. We have 2 members who are not here. And yet the way our committee structure is set up, that every board member has a position to serve on either this or the Audit Finance Committee. Could we nominate them in their absence?
You can. You will need to confirm that they're comfortable with that once you're done. And if they're not, then at this stage, you're simply appointing to a committee, a subcommittee of the board. So it's not as critical that we follow the same process that we followed for the chair and vice chair. So I'm not concerned about you nominating and appointing somebody who's not present, but you will need to close the loop when you can communicate with them.
Question, Mr. Shores, are we able to obviously nominate even some of the 2 members that aren't here? And if they so choose not to be at a later meeting, reconsider the membership of the committee in question?
Absolutely, you can.
Okay, so this would be, it would move us to the next stage. And if there are any changes, we can deal with that accordingly.
Indeed, correct.
Okay.
Mr. Shores, I'd like to nominate Councillor Stuart Houston.
Okay. We need 1 more.
Who was on it last time, Justin? Are they both gone? Yeah, they're both gone, the ones that we had, right?
Yeah, it was Ray, Chantel, yourself, and I.
So maybe we should appoint Jeff, and then that should make it work. So I recommend Jeff Craddock, Mayor Jeff Craddock, be appointed to the Audit and Finance Committee.
You've
On that
ident-
basis, we would have 2 continuing and 2 new. So we'd have some continuity on the committee.
And I see Councillor Houston is now present, so we can confirm that he's comfortable serving on the Audit and Finance Committee. You've just been nominated, Councillor Houston.
Okay, thanks. If that's where you need me, that's where I'll go.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, we've identified 4 people to serve on an Audit and Finance. Is there anybody interested? Anybody else interested? Seeing no raising of hands or motion, I would suggest, Mr. Chair, that you invite a motion to appoint Councillor Craddock, Councillor Houston, Councillor Finstad, and Councillor Laurie. Sorry, Mayor Craddock, Councillor Houston, Councillor Finstad, and Councillor Laurie to the Audit and Finance Committee.
Thank you very much, Mr. Shores. Councillor Laurie, could I invite you to make that motion?
Certainly, Mr. Chair. I will move that Mayor Craddock, Councillor Houston, Councillor Finstead, and Councillor Laurie be appointed to the Audit and Finance Committee.
Okay, using the raise the hand function, please indicate your vote. All in favor, please. And I believe I have seen unanimous vote. Thank you very much. Now moving on, Mr. Shores.
The next order of business is the selection and appointment of the chair of that committee.
Okay, Mr. Shores, I'd like to nominate Justin Laurie as the chair of the Audit and Finance Committee.
Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Mr. Chair, seeing none, he would be selected by acclamation. I would ask that you invite a motion to appoint Councillor Laurie as chair of the Audit and Finance Committee.
Fair enough. Would somebody care to move that motion?
I'd be happy to. I move that Councillor Laurie be appointed as chair of the Audit and Finance Committee.
Okay, thank you very much. Using the raise a hand function, if you could consider your vote, all in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much. Congratulations, Councillor Laurie. Back to you, Mr. Shores.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The commission now needs 3 members of its board to serve on the Human Resources and Compensation Committee. I would ask that individuals either identify themselves or be nominated to serve as members of that committee.
I move that Gord Harris be appointed to that committee.
Thank you.
Just a point of order, Mr. Chair. Do we not need to do the Audit and Finance Committee Vice Chair?
Sorry, that is my error, Mr. Chair. I apologize. That was my error. Sorry. Mr. Chair, I would ask that I would invite nominations to the Audit and Finance Committee Vice Chair position.
I move that Councillor Houston be appointed to the Vice Chair position of the Audit and Finance Committee.
Councillor Houston, do you accept that nomination?
I'd like to no, I'd like to nominate Mayor Craddock for vice chair.
He is not present, so we can't check in with him, but he is on the committee. Any other nominations?
Who's the other candidate on the committee? Sorry.
Glenn Finstad.
Councillor Finstead.
Councillor Finstad.
I'm okay with Mayor Craddock.
Okay.
There's a single nomination, which is Mayor Craddock. Any other nominations? Seeing none, Mr. Chair, I would ask that you invite a motion to select Mayor Craddock as the Vice Chair of the Audit and Finance Committee.
All right, thank you very much. Then would someone care to make the motion that's been presented to us for Vice Chair Mayor Craddock?
I would be prepared to make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Harris, using the raise the hand function, please indicate your agreement. All in favor, please. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Laurie, for waking me up there. I apologize. Now I would like, Mr. Chair, to invite nominations or identification of directors who wish to serve on the Human Resources and Compensation Committee. And we're looking for 3.
In the Vice Chair. I nominate Councillor.
Sorry, I did not hear that.
You're
Still muted.
Councillor Harris. Finger's not working. I nominate Councillor Harris.
Thank you. We require 2 more nominations.
I nominate Councillor Sam Monkoff Swain.
And I'll check in with each of you when we're done. I
Mr.
require one more nomination.
Mr. Shores, I will nominate Councillor Andrew Knack.
Thank you. There are now 3 nominations. Any further nominations?
Just a point of order. Sorry, Mr. Shores, and apologies if you've covered this. I think last time we had 4. I'm just curious why there's 3 on this committee.
Yeah, I think Wes made up the 4th one.
So we
My
should.
understanding is the terms of reference had, I'll pull up the terms of reference 1 second.
So the chair cannot sit on the audit and finance, but can the chair, is he ex officio or a member of the finance minister or the HR and compensation?
So I'm just pulling up the terms of reference that I have. Sorry, the reason is that the board chair is automatically on it.
So it is
Thank you.
4.
So it's 4 in total, 3 elected or selected. My apologies. Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
so that goes to my question. Is that an ex officio or is it just by virtue of his position because of the position?
The terms of reference identify that it's the chair and 3.
Okay.
Thank you. So we have 3 identified, and just want to confirm, Councillor Munchoff Swain, do you accept the nomination?
Do you accept?
Councillor Knack,
Yes, I accept.
Councillor Harris,
I accept.
thank you. Mr. Chair, I would ask that you invite a motion to appoint Councillor Munchoff Swain, Councillor Knack, Councillor Harris to the Human Resources and Compensation Committee.
I would be most happy to do so. Would somebody care to make that motion? Councillor Laurie?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will move that Councillor Munchoff Swain, Councillor Knack, and Councillor Harris be appointed to the HR and Compensation Committee.
Thank you very much. Using the raise the hand function, I'll call a question. All in favor, please. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. All right, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would invite nominations for Chair of the Human Resources and Compensation Committee.
I'd like to nominate Gord Harris for chair.
Are there any other nominations? Mr. Harris, do you accept that?
I accept.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that you invite a motion appointing Councillor Harris as the Chair of the Human Resources and Compensation Committee.
Thank you very much, sir. Would somebody care to make that motion?
I can do that, Chair, that Gord Harris be appointed as Chair of the HR and Compensation Committee.
Thank you, Councillor Munchoff Swain. Again, voting, please indicate your vote. All in favor, please. And that is unanimous. Thank you very much.
And now the Vice Chair.
Yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would ask that you invite nominations for the Vice Chair of the HR and Compensation Committee.
I would nominate Councillor Munchoff Swain, the position of Vice Chair of the HR and Compensation Committee.
Are there any other nominations? Councillor Munchoff Swain, do you accept?
I do accept.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that you invite a motion appointing Councillor Munchoff Swain as Vice Chair of the HR and Compensation Committee.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. Someone care to make that motion?
I would so move that Councillor Munchoff Swain be appointed as Vice Chair of the HR and Compensation Committee.
Thank you very much. Using the raise the hand function, please vote. All in favor? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much. Back to you, Mr. Shores.
I believe, sir, that concludes the selection of the members that you need to select at this meeting.
Outstanding. Thank you very much, Mr. Shores. Appreciated you walking the board through that process. I suspect we'll have to do it again next year or 2 years from now or whenever that is. But in any case, thank you very much. Appreciated that. Well done. Back to the agenda. Number 10 is the board and committee 2021-2022 meeting schedule. Can I turn this over to you, Mr. Jankowski?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. So we distributed a proposed agenda to the board as part of the agenda package. We have shown it, and I apologize for the size of it, on the screen. What it maintains is largely the previously discussed and adopted pattern of hosting or holding the Audit and Finance Committee meeting on the first Thursday of every month, the Human Resources and Compensation Committee meeting on the second Wednesday of every month, and the board meeting, our current practice has been to hold it on the third Thursday of every month. However, in some of the preliminary discussions that we had with members of the board, Councillor Knack indicated that would have conflicted, for 5 of the proposed months, it would have conflicted with his duties in relation to Alberta municipalities. And so for the months of May, June, September, November, and December, what we have proposed for board consideration is that the board meeting in those months be held on the third Wednesday afternoon of every month, as opposed to the third Thursday afternoon of every month. We have also held in reserve for the months of July and August only the board meeting dates. We have not at this point asked you to approve a calendar which includes the committee meetings in those months. And as a result, the overall calendar is presented for you as it stands on slide 24.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Mr. Jankowski. I've got Councillor Markov-Swain and then Councillor Knack. Go ahead, Councillor Markov-Swain.
I apologize. That's a legacy hand from me. Apologies about that.
Okay. Fair enough. Thanks. Councillor Knack.
Thank you, and thanks for your work on this. Appreciate that you've offered some changes, and I'm going to hate myself for being difficult. The suggested changes actually don't really help in my case. So what I'm wondering about, and we don't need to resolve it all today. There's only 8 of us, so I thought maybe we can see if we can sort out December, and then we could spend the next couple of weeks providing a couple suggestions or alternatives. So for example, I don't have so much an issue with the Thursday for board meetings, except the start time. So Alberta municipalities typically runs till about 2:30 or 3 o'clock. So for example, this meeting starting at 3 works perfectly, but I don't know if that's going to be so if the rest of the year was all 3 o'clock and the rest of the board was acceptable to it, that's probably going to work fairly well. But I don't want to resolve that now and spend our meeting time figuring out what the right calendar is. That's not an efficient use of time. The other piece is with some of the committee meetings, my suggestion, and again, I'd like to talk about it with the fellow board members, is, being there an hour long, are there opportunities to try to do that at lunch times versus the current time? Because I think that is going to create some conflicts again. So if it's okay, Mr. Chair, my thinking is maybe we could look to resolve December, just to make sure, and then from there work through it. And I don't want everyone to have to work around my schedule. To be very clear, I recognize that there are priorities. My issue that I'm running into is that if it's either on the Alberta municipalities, which I have been on for a few years now and made a commitment to that beforehand, or on my council meeting days where we have a council made up of 8 new members. And so being sort of the old guard on this council, I feel it's really important for me not to be skipping out on those meetings, at least for the first little while this council gets the hang of it. So I don't want you to have to work around my schedule, but if there is a way to do so, it would be greatly appreciated. I also want to commit my time to this, and that's why I only signed on to a few assignments this term on council.
Well, from my perspective, Andrew, Councillor Knack, we certainly invite your participation here, and we'll work to make that happen. I like your idea of maybe settling on December, and then over the next couple of weeks, come up with a revised calendar. So my question before I get to you, Councillor Harris, is Mr. Jankowski, Mr. Shores, is there any legislative reason why we have to pass the entire year's worth of meetings as presented? Or can we settle on December and then work over the next couple of weeks and pass the rest of the meeting agenda on the 16th of December?
Perhaps I can start, and Mr. Shores, I'll invite Mr. Shores' comment. The governance bylaw does indicate that the calendar for the next year is to be determined at the organizational meeting. But I think the spirit of the discussion is the one that we're engaging in now, that the board is engaging in now. I feel confident, barring contradiction from Mr. Shores, that if the board wished to approve the meeting dates for December and then have us refer the remainder of the discussion to that December board meeting, I would suspect that that is probably okay if it's done by motion. Mr. Shores, I don't know if you have a different feeling on that.
Correct, sir. Ideally, it would be done at this meeting, but circumstances don't allow that. So I would recommend that you adopt the December date and then adjourn the consideration of the balance of dates till the December meeting. You have if you have sufficient votes on this, and if everybody was unanimous, you would have a special resolution in any event and be able to override the bylaw, in effect, rewrite the bylaw. So I don't see any legal impediment.
So the wording then would be to approve the December meeting dates and adjourn
Consideration of the balance of the agenda to the December meeting.
Okay, fair enough. All right,
So
we'll consider that.
Yes, and so just with that in mind, Mr. Chair, and then I'll remove myself from the floor here. If we are going to look at the December meetings, I would unfortunately have to make two requests, and that's why, again, I don't want to be overly difficult, but if the December meeting is able to start at the same time we started this one, I have no conflict at all. If we can't, I'll just be a bit late, and I'll make my effort to be there as quickly as possible. But again, I don't want you all to realign your schedules around mine. I will do what I can. The final request would be for the committee meeting, similarly to that point, if that is occurring while we are in the middle of budget deliberations. If it was a lunchtime meeting for committee, then I'm fully there, but that is one I would run into conflict on for the committee meeting on the 8th. So I just wanted to throw that out. And again, if we can sort that out, then we can deal with the rest later.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Harris, let's think on that last part there, Andrew. Councillor Harris, comment, is this pertinent to this question or a new question?
No, it's really pertinent. And the first on my calendar, it shows 1:30 start time. Is that a lunch start time? And it's listed as at the Chateau Louis in the calendar that I have. And then the second question that's conjunctive with that is, will the meetings be able to be virtually held so that if you can't attend in person, you can do so virtually from wherever you are, like the top of Whistler or something like that? Oh, yes. So those are the two questions. So it goes to the topic we're talking about in relation to, I guess, what Andrew was talking about, an earlier start time. Is lunch 12 or is it around 12? Is kind of what my question is.
Okay, back to you, Councillor Knack. I'm assuming lunch for you is 12, correct?
Yeah, right. And 12 would be the ideal piece. And I'm specifically on that one talking about the committee meetings where we're expecting an hour-long meeting. If that can run from sort of 12 or 12-ish to for 1 hour, that's an ideal circumstance. And then I can sort of make that work almost any day when it comes to committee meetings. Specifically on the 16th, that one, if we want to continue it on the 16th, for me to be there, it would either have to start later, or I would just, again, be showing up a bit late. I have a conflict that I cannot move on that. So if we started at 3, I have no issue at all. If we start at 1:30, I'll be late, or if we can start anywhere in between there, I'll make do as best I can. So again, appreciating that I don't want the rest of you to work around my particular schedule, and yet I am asking that somewhat. So my apologies.
Okay, well, let's if the committee would, the board would indulge me for the HR and Compensation Committee meeting for December to start at 12 noon. Councillor Munkoff Swain, it's yourself and Councillor Harris and myself. Are we able to make the 12 noon meeting time?
Yeah, no problem with me. Just all I need is as much notice as possible and get in my calendar.
Okay.
Likewise. Yeah, likewise. I've got a pretty good flexibility for those times in any event. The sooner we get them pegged down into the calendar, the easier it is to adjust it if necessary.
Fair enough. Mr. Jankowski, can the organization support a noon hour meeting for December HR and Comp meeting?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we will absolutely endeavor to meet the board's requirements, meet the committee's requirements. I'm confident that we can make the noon hour work.
Okay.
Similarly, in terms of just to kind of jump ahead, in terms of a 3 o'clock start time, the original meeting date or meeting time of 1:30 for the board meeting on the 16th was tied to the original desire to hold hybrid type meetings, which would have included in person. I think given the discussions that have taken place and given the situation that continues to exist in the Edmonton area vis-a-vis the restrictions on the various restrictions on workplace attendance and so on, we were going to propose that the December board meeting continue to be held in the virtual format, and as such, we would have no problems accommodating a 3 o'clock start. So I just thought I'd throw that in now.
Okay, fair enough. Councillor Finstead?
Thank you. I just want to check with Councillor Knack to see if a 2 o'clock or 2:30 start would be more manageable for him for the board meeting.
It is possible. I have a bit of overlap, but it's less. It's not as big of a concern as 1:30. I still might be a bit late, but I'm fine with that. If that works better for everyone else, and you could start at 2 or 2:30, I'm going to be close to being able to be there right on time, or there right on time. It's just I know at 1:30 I can't. I'm fairly confident I won't be able to be there right at 1:30.
Well, why don't we propose 2:30 then? So for the HR and Compensation meeting start time in December, it will be moved to 12 o'clock. And the board meeting for December of 2021 will be moved to 2:30 on December the 16th. Any comments, questions, objections to that on behalf of the board members? Okay, fair enough then. Can I invite a motion then? And the motion will read that the proposed, that the 2021 meeting schedule be approved for December as amended, and that the remainder of the 2022 meeting schedule be adjourned for discussion to the December 2021 board meeting. Did I get that wording fairly close, Mr. Shores?
That's fine, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Would somebody care to make that motion?
I'll make that motion. It's Glenn here.
Thank you very much, Councillor Finstead. And I'm more than confident that Agata got that all written down. And Any questions about the motion? I won't ask you to read it back into the record because it's not before us, but okay, thank you for the motion, Councillor Finstad. Any opening comments?
No, Mr. Chair, I think we're okay with it.
Okay, Councillor Harris, did you have any comments on debate?
No, I was just moving to the vote.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you for that. All in favor, please using the raise the hand function, please indicate. And that's unanimous. Thanks, everybody. Moving right along. We're over to you, Mr. Jankowski, for the 2022 work plan elements.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I know that I got the scrambling to try to change decks here. So I will give her a minute to do that. What we're about to present is essentially a quick discussion around the major work elements that we have identified for 2022. According to the governance bylaw, what we should be bringing forward to the board as part of the organizational meeting is consideration and ultimately asking the board for approval of an operational plan for the subsequent year. Given that we're at the point now where we're revising, or we've identified that it is unrealistic to assume a start of bus transit operations in late 2022, and I'll speak to that a little bit throughout this presentation. What we do feel it's responsible to do is to bring forward for the board's consideration the major work plan elements that we propose to discuss, to complete throughout the year, or in some cases just to initiate towards the tail end of 2022, to prepare us for the ability to deliver a service plan, an operational budget, and an operating plan for the board's approval in late 22 for 2023 start of operations. So we're deviating a little bit from what the governance bylaw stipulated, but nevertheless, I do believe it's prudent for us to gauge whether or not the board is comfortable with the work plan elements that we are proposing as an administration for 2022. This is not all comprehensive, but it does form the basis of the major work elements, particularly the new work elements. And it also forms the basis of what we're recommending in the subsequent item with regards to the operating and capital budget for 2022. So without further ado, moving on to slide 2. Slide 2 simply shows the two major categories of work, and we've chosen to group this in a fashion that I think you're familiar with now. The first grouping of work is related to continuing to stand up the commission. So this is continuing to put in place the building blocks for a secure long-term foundation to the board's operation, to the committee's operation. And the second block of work is what we've talked about over the course of the last couple of months, and that is preparing for a service delivery start and reflecting the direction that the board provided in September with regards to the need to carry out a comparative analysis of what many people had thought about would be the start of operations in 2019, 2020, and where we find ourselves today. I propose to go through these in a little bit of detail one by one. Some of this information has been shared with the board in the past. This is just intended to provide you with an overall summary of the various elements. So moving on to slide 3, the ongoing work of building organizational capacity by putting in place not only a senior leadership team, but also throughout 2020, a number of key positions that will oversee all the work to get us to a start of operations in 2023, as well as overseeing some of the operations themselves. And I've shared this picture with members of the board in the past. The dark blue boxes are the positions that we're currently recruiting for. And in addition to that, a number of the other functions that are located elsewhere in this functional organizational chart are reflected as positions that we need to move forward with in 2022. And through her presentation in the budget item, Lori Shea Smith will speak to the key positions that we wish to include in 2022 hiring proposals. Moving on then to the next slide. I have shared this diagram with the board as well. I also am glad to report that as of yesterday, when I went and visited the site of our new offices and the new meeting room, all of the steel stud walls are now up. We've been working with the landlord to put in place the technology drops and the electrical feeds for the various office locations and the other needs. And over the course of 2022, you will see primarily through the capital budget submission, we will outfit the facility and complete our move to the new facility in the first part of 2022. The work of brand development on the next slide is ongoing work, and while we'll be bringing forward the next piece of that as part of the December board meeting, we will be undertaking the completion of the brand development and really securing a new identity for the commission and putting that forward to all of our municipalities, to all of the constituents, the 1.5 million constituents in the Edmonton metropolitan region. This is the work of really getting us recognized as a singular entity, working with all 8 municipalities to identify the appropriate linkages to the brand that we're going to create, and also looking at, do we need to marry certain components of that brand with other well-known transit providers in the area, i.e. ETS. The next thing I'll speak to, and I've spoken to this in the past, the continuing work of funding advocacy. We have spoken about this a number of times. The board initiated a number of reach outs prior to the federal election. As we saw earlier on the consent agenda, we've received some response to our initial submission to the parties at the federal level, but certainly as we start to become a more recognizable entity serving the metropolitan region, and we become one of the more significant transit players, if I can put it that way, in the Alberta area, we will be working to develop a bit of a pan-Albertan approach to seeking additional funding, and associated with that through the work of undertaking the development of a longer-term financial framework, also exploring, as had been indicated in the original business case, start exploring other potential sources of funding for the commission. So not just limiting ourselves to asks to the senior levels of government with regards to dollars, but perhaps starting to develop some other proposals to seek to alleviate the amounts that would be otherwise requisitioned from the member municipalities. The next block of work is a new block that we propose to undertake in particularly the first 2 or 3 quarters of 2022, and that is to review with the board, review and to update our strategic objectives, the identification of our strategic objectives, and look at the various timelines associated with those. While we've all been focused on putting in place the opening day service offering. I think at this point, given the level of growth and where we're at in terms of standing up the commission, it would be appropriate to engage with the board in a strategic planning exercise and identify what the long-term, medium-term, and immediate objectives would be. Moving forward, and I kind of teased on this already, starting to work, and this is tied to the longer term strategic plan objectives that we might wish to identify, initiating towards the end of the year 2 significant components of work. The first is the financial plan framework that would position this organization on sound financial footings going forward for many years, making sure that what we're putting in place is based on a sustainable financial plan for the future. And the next piece is moving forward to slide number 10 is continuing the work, or sorry, initiating the work that's prescribed in the governance review, the governance bylaw, that work of carrying out a governance review early in 2023. With the work that we're proposing to undertake in terms of the strategic planning, with the work that we need to start doing, in my opinion, in late 2022 related to a financial framework, I think all those things tie into a discussion around governance. And so the work that was otherwise prescribed to start in early 2023, January 2023, actually, we would propose to discuss with the board over the course of 2022 and engage in the first steps of that in Q3, Q4 of 2022. And last but not least, in the discussion around standing up, putting in place the building blocks for the commission, the board has a responsibility, a governance responsibility in regards to my performance, in regards to the performance of the entire commission's administrative team, but that's reflected in my performance objectives. I really believe that the time is right following the discussion of the strategic planning to really develop a robust performance plan, have the board approve that, have the board be comfortable with that, and that should guide our activities going forward. Included with that would be the development of an appropriate evaluation framework so that the board can assess how we're meeting your objectives as defined through the performance plan that you ascribe to me. I've only got 2 more slides to go, and the next 2 slides speak to what I spoke about in terms of getting ready for opening day service. So the first plan, the first piece that I've spoken about at length through some of the more recent meetings. We're now at the point where I have on the board's behalf, I have retained a consultant to develop request for proposals to go out to the marketplace to carry out all this work. We're developing that now. I've gotten the first draft, and Lori's been involved in that work as well. We developed the first draft, or received the first draft from the folks that we have entrusted to helping us to develop that request for proposals. We are now reviewing it, and we're hoping to get that work of procuring those professional consulting services. We're hoping to get that going within the next week or so. And we'll certainly be reporting more fully on that in December. But this is going to be a significant portion of work to be undertaken at significant cost in the first 2 quarters of 2022. And as I've indicated before to the board, that work will also be tied to the ongoing work that will be taking place, and we'll be engaging in, and I've already been speaking to the city managers about over the course of 2022, and that is the work of defining and negotiating the service delivery agreements that's identified on slide number 13. These will be the agreements that will form the basis of an integrated delivery of services under the EMTSC banner, but largely reliant on the current delivery mechanisms because as I've stated before, in order for us to be ready by January or the early part of 2023 to operate under the EMTSC banner, the timing's simply too short for us to develop brand new delivery mechanisms. And quite frankly, it's probably something that would follow in the subsequent years as we start to assess the strengths and potentially the challenges of the current delivery models operating in an integrated way under the EMTSC direction. So those are all of the proposed large blocks of work that we're proposing for 2022. And you will see through the subsequent presentation of the proposed operating budget, these blocks of work are really what form the ask that's in front of you as part of the next agenda item. What I would ask is for your input on, with respect to these blocks of work. I'll be happy to answer any questions. But ultimately, at the end of the day, if you agree, I would ask for your concurrence with these proposed work elements and allow us to move forward to talking about the financial needs associated with them. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, thanks, Mr. Jankowski. So I'll open the floor to any questions, comments. It's certainly a robust work plan before you. Certainly concur with the idea, though, that we owe you a performance management program, both for your benefit, but also for the benefit of the commission. And I think that's a work element that needs to be completed appropriately. So any other comments? Recognizing that there's a lot to digest there. We've had a chance to take a look at it. Any questions or comments? All right, Paul, your presentation obviously was well understood and coherent. So could I entertain a motion to accept the work plan elements? Somebody care to make that motion?
I would be so prepared to make that motion, Mr.
Thank you,
Chair.
Councillor Harris. Could you read that into the record, please?
I would move that the 2022 work plan elements be approved as presented.
Thank you. I accept that. Any opening comments on debate?
Obviously, this is a critical piece of work, and I think there's been some good work Mr. Jankowski and his group have put together, and that will hopefully lead us into the next few months so that we can do the things necessary to bring our plan to fruition. I support the comment that Mr. Jankowski made about the issue of his work plan and his elements need to be tied to our strategic priorities. I think that's just a fundamental element of human resource planning and performance management in an objective context. So I think that makes a lot of sense to me, and look forward to helping to stand that up and get it completed. So I so move this motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Harris. Anybody else on debate? Councillor Laurie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And it might be more of a question just than a debate item. And I know we had spoken about it a little bit in the past about asset transfers and how asset transfers will play into everything. And when I look at, whether it's the opening day service plan development or whether it's our financial plan framework, obviously the asset management or the asset transfer portion of that is going to play a significant role. So is Mr. Jankowski able to speak to that as to where that lies in this plan and at what point we anticipate that to be completed so that we understand how that will play into all of these new items?
Thank you. So certainly the discussion around the service delivery agreements will include the discussion around transfer of assets. And to go back to the original business case, it may be outright transfer of ownership of assets, or it may be transfer of control of municipal or direction of municipal assets. So those are some of the things that need to be worked out, and the answers will be different, I think, municipality by municipality, depending on how those hard the tangible capital assets are used in the delivery of the transit services. So for example, in some municipalities, we've already learned that there are capital assets in terms of operational yards that are co-shared between the transit function and some of the other public works functions. So in those cases, it might not be an outright physical transfer of assets, a transfer of title of assets, but it might be transfer of control of certain parts of the municipal assets. And those are all subject to the overall discussion and negotiation of what opening day service, how opening day service would be delivered under the EMTSC umbrella. You're bang on in terms of sort of pushing for that. They're associated with that will also be I'm sure a detailed financial discussion, because if there are outright transfers of assets, what we want to ensure is that this commission is prepared financially to deal with whatever condition those assets are in. So if the assets have been what's the best tactical way to put this, or diplomatic way to put this? If the assets are in great condition and they're brand new assets as they're being transferred, that's one discussion, and the board can and the commission can prepare to deal with the depreciation of those assets and ultimately the replacement of those assets in a certain way. If the assets that are being transferred are assets that are at the last stage of life, then there's probably a discussion about how we deal with the financial liabilities associated with the transfer of those assets. So these are going to be a long and difficult conversations, I would expect, but they need to be undertaken as part of the discussion of transferring service from the municipality to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Jankowski. Did you get what you needed there, Councillor Laurie?
Yeah, I think it just highlights the importance of that as we continue on with things like the opening day service plan development and such, as I know obviously there has been some concern with the impacts of COVID and how that has changed our business case. You know, we're kind of trying to balance multiple things here, and knowing that there might be some concerns with certain member municipalities, you know, trying to make sure we're not putting the cart before the horse, and also understanding what impacts different decisions are going to have. I know it's not going to be an easy process, and I don't envy Mr. Jankowski and his team for the work they're going to have to put into it to come to an end. But certainly I appreciate that it does seem to be front of mind, and there is an action plan around that. So I appreciate hearing that.
Thank you. Councillor Houston?
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I just wanted to say the layout here is great. I think, Paul, I think you've hit all the elements in a nice orderly fashion of what we need to do. That's great. The one question I had on the initiate the financial plan framework in Q4. I mean, that work is going to be ongoing all year, I would imagine, but I wonder, the heavy lifting for the development of all that, does the Audit and Finance Committee do a bit of oversight on that? I don't imagine the Audit and Finance Committee is going to be developing the multi-year commission capital plans or also looking at the funding formulas and stuff like that. So you have somebody doing the heavy lifting and all of that financial information. Is that you guys or consulting work that you're working with?
So right now it's mostly us. We're preparing how that work would be carried out. We don't have at this point any kind of financial analytics capacity, but certainly as part of the work that we have committed to carrying out for identifying the opening day service plan, we have included in that the need for financial analytical capacity so that we can build a bottom-up costing of what we're going to propose on day one. That'll really be the first piece of the financial analysis work that and to go back to your question, we'll certainly be sharing that on a regular basis with both the Audit and Finance Committee and ultimately with the board as we go through that process. The element that I spoke to earlier in terms of the big work plan element dealing with a longer term financial strategy, making sure we put in place a longer term sustainable financial plan. That's the work that we're suggesting will start on it really in late 2022. So I would draw a distinction between the financial analytics that need to be done in relation to presenting commission, the board, with a decision around opening day service, and as well towards the end of the year, starting the work of creating a long-term financial framework, which looks at not just opening day, but many years thereafter, to make sure that this endeavor results in a sustainable organization for the future.
Okay, great. Thank you very much for that. My final question relates to the point that Councillor Laurie raised in regards to the transfer of capital assets. Now, I know Leduc and Spruce Grove, we have a very small capital asset, but is there do you foresee any resistance to, or is this the plan, is to have all capital assets of all member municipalities transferred to the commission, like just like asset transfer to be operated, maintained, replaced, and all that? Do you foresee that as going forward, or is there any issues with that?
Well, what I don't anticipate is that it'll be a one-size-fits-all solution. Okay. I think the discussions are going to be municipality by municipality. They're going to be reflective of what are discrete assets that can be transferred versus what are assets that need to be thought of in terms of the municipality maintaining ownership, but divesting some aspect of control or direction to the use of those assets. So I think there's going to be a series of discussions, and I've already initiated those through the initial round of dialogue that I've been involved in with the city managers. They just over the course of the last 3 weeks, I've been touching base with each one of them, indicating that we need to start thinking about carrying out this work in parallel to the development of the opening day service plan. Originally, what I had thought when I came into the organization and first started discussing this issue with the municipalities and with the board, I thought we would have the ability to actually proceed sequentially. So develop the service plan, develop the budget, and then get into a discussion about opening day service delivery agreements and asset transfer agreements. I'm now convinced that we're not going to have the luxury of time associated with building in a sequential type of work plan. So we are going to have to carry out some of these activities in parallel. And quite frankly, I'm scrambling trying to hire the internal resources and bring them on board to have the expertise to actually undertake that work at the same time that the service planning work is being done.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. That answers my question. Thanks.
Okay. Anyone else? Back to you, Councillor Harris, to close.
Nothing more to add to the discussion, which has been good.
All right, fair enough. Using the raise the hand function, I'll call for the vote. All in favor as presented? And that is unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. Moving right along. And back to you, Mr. Jankowski. Tabling of the 2022 budget.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. And I will be turning this over after an initial introduction to Laurie Shea Smith, who has popped up on your screens. Very happy to hand this over to Laurie. What I just wanted to position this with the board a little bit, or pre-position this. We've had a discussion about it, a little earlier. What we're presenting to the board is a proposed budget, and in a normal organizational meeting, as prescribed by our governance bylaw, we would be at a point of approving the budget. Because we would have already presented the draft in an earlier meeting. We would have sought the board's input relative to the draft. And at this point, at the first organizational meeting or at the organizational meeting for the subsequent year, we would be asking for the board's approval of the next year's operating budget and capital budget, as well as of the following, the outlook for the following years thereafter. Given where we are, given that this is the board's first look at the budget, we are tabling the budget today. And what we're proposing to the board is that subsequent to the presentations, that we ask the board for the board's input today, and that we consider the board's input and bring back, if there are any required changes or required discussion points, we bring those back to the December 2nd Audit and Finance Committee for ultimate recommendation to the board for approval at its meeting of December 16th. So I just wanted to have everybody kind of have that in their minds as Lori moves through the presentation of the proposed operating and capital budget. And we're open to and seeking the board's input on all and any aspects of the presentation. So I see a couple of hands up. Be happy to answer questions now before Lori gets started, or it's up to you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, fair enough. I didn't notice whose hand went up first, but Councillor Munkoff-Swing, and then Councillor Lori.
No, sorry. That was a legacy hand. I'll be better at that. Sorry, that's 2 today.
It's okay. We're not counting.
That was my first one of the day.
Well, I've left mine up too, so hey, we're all in the same boat.
Okay, so
I guess up to you.
So with that, thank you. And just before Lori gets started, I want to give Lori kudos on the preparation of the presentation and of the document that was circulated to you ahead of time as part of the agenda. You know, in 3 short months, Lori has grasped the reins here and has been running with the financial train. The financial coach, if I can put it that way. She's done exemplary work, and all of the credit kind of goes to her with regards to this presentation. Any blame you can direct to me. Lori's done tremendous work in getting us to where we need to be today. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lori.
Thank you, Paul. So the next item on our agenda is the tabling of our proposed operating and capital budgets for 2022 and the 2023 to 2024 outlook. Okay. The startup costs for the commission for 2020 and 2021 are forecasted to be $2.486 million at the end of December. As Paul has discussed during his presentation on our work plan for 2022, the focus areas for us will be continuing to stand up the commission in advance of opening day and defining our opening day service and working through, as the discussion was held between Councillor Lori and Councillor Houston and Paul, the complexity of the service delivery agreements with our member municipalities. This results in our proposed operating budget of $3.643 million and a small capital request of $250,000 for 2022. Over the 3-year stand-up period from 2020 to 2022, the total cost will be $6.379 million, which is $352,000 higher than the anticipated costs that were included in the June 2020 business case addendum. All the startup costs for the commission are debt financed. Transitioning the delivery of regional and local transit service from municipal operators to the commission will occur early in 2023. A detailed operating budget, including transit operational costs, will be presented to the board in the fall of 2022. The current proposed operating and capital budgets for 2022 include only the startup and reoccurring incremental costs. In addition, the outlook for 2023 and 2024 only reflect the continuation of those costs and not any of the transit operational costs at this time. The recommendations included in the tabling of the budget are a proposed operating budget for 2022 for a total of 3.643 million. And we're also tabling the outlook for 2023 and 2024. And in addition, a proposed capital budget for 2022, $250,000. The topics we will be presenting in the upcoming slides are a look back at the approved budget for 2021, an overview and update of our year-end forecast as of December of 2021, presentation of the proposed 2022 operating and capital budgets and the outlook for 2023-2024, and then finally a discussion on our future capital budget, which again ties into the question that Councillor Laurie and Councillor Houston just had. I would like to start our discussion looking back at where we started 2021. So on the screen in front of you is the budget that the board passed at the February 18th meeting. This budget contains the 2020 and 2021 incremental costs of standing up the commission, and it was estimated to cost the commission $3.765 million. The budget, as presented, included two categories. There are one-time or startup expenses and reoccurring expenses. We have updated our 2021 year-end forecast using our actual expenditures up to the end of October, and we have forecasted November and December spending. So on your screen in front of you, you will see that we are projecting our costs to the end of 2021 to be $2.486 million, which is $1.279 million lower than the approved budget for 2021. Because the commission stand-up period is debt financed, the $1.275 million equates to less debt financing utilized in 2021. Traditionally, this underspending would be viewed as savings. And in a municipal context, which you are all familiar with, it will be used to repay debt or increase operating or capital reserves. For the commission, the underspending represents a carry forward of the stand-up period activities into 2022, which have been included in our proposed operating and capital budgets. The main contributing factors to the variance when compared to budget are the one-time and startup costs associated with developing the detailed transit planning activities, which now we're pushing, of course, into 2022, and the incremental resourcing costs included in the recurring incremental cost section. We are much slower than anticipated in onboarding the staff in 2021. We will now present the proposed 2022 budget. Included in the proposed budget are the following focus areas, and these tie back to the discussion that Paul had in our work plan. So continuation of standing up the commission, we have included costs associated with onboarding of new staff throughout 2022. And we've also included the cost of opening our new office for the commission staff and the space to hold our hybrid board meetings next year. In addition, there are contracted services in the budget to assist us with the following large work plan activities. So as Paul stated, we'll be working on a strategic planning exercise with the board. There's a governance review, and the big chunk will be the comparative analysis for the transit service delivery. And this does include transit operations and financial analysis. And there's a public facilitation piece in here as well. As I previously outlined, the proposed budgets and outlook only include startup and reoccurring administration costs because opening day of transit operations under our banner will be in 2023. However, throughout the budget process, we have spent time building the budget from the bottom up based on our 2022 work plan and our estimated costs and the timing of those activities in 2022. The proposed operating budget for 2022 that you see on your screen is $3.643 million. We have taken the costs and presented them in the same format that's been included in the business case and in the 2021 budget. We have 874,000 included in one-time and the startup cost section, and then an additional 2.769 million in recurring incremental costs. Through the bottom-up budget process, we have also built the proposed 2022 budget in a format you're most likely familiar with seeing from your municipal administration. We have set up our back-end financial reporting structure and organized the commission into 5 divisions and have budgeted our expenditures down to that level of detail to improve our financial reporting going into 2022. This chart includes the same 3.643 million as the other chart, and it also includes the amortization of the proposed capital budget, capital assets, and it organizes it by financial statement categories. The 3 largest bucket of costs that you see on your screen are wages and benefits, professional consulting services, and materials and supplies. The budget that we're proposing in the wages and benefit category is $2.12 million. Included in this budget is an increase of 9 FTEs and with onboarding staggered throughout the year. And I've organized it and summarized it by division. There will be increases in each of our 5 divisions next year. There was an attachment included in the meeting material, so I'll just high level go over the 9 FTEs that we're planning on adding. There is HR, IT, there's marketing, there's a financial analyst for my department. In the transit operations department, there's bus operations, fleet and facilities manager, customer service, and then some additional admin support and legal counsel proposed, all to be staggered throughout the year. The proposed budget for professional and consulting services is a little over $1 million. It includes the continuation of the existing external support that we currently have in place for legal, HR, IT, and payroll. In addition, we have included costs for our work plan activities for strategic planning, the governance review, the detailed comparative analysis for service delivery, including the detailed financial analysis and transit operations analysis, and the concluding of the branding activity that was started with the board in 2021. The material and supplies budget is pretty small. It's $230,000, and it includes common things that you would expect for us. So our office rent and utilities, office supplies, our cost of insurance, bank fees, and technology costs. Again, to repeat myself again, we have a proposed capital budget of $250,000. Here we highlight the fact that $150,000 of it is for furniture for the office and the boardroom, and there's an additional $100,000 placeholder for IT equipment, again, for the office and the boardroom. The final item included in the proposed 2022 budget is the interest carrying cost on the debt. The budget for 2022 is $91,000. Included in the budget is an assumption that by the end of the year, the bank prime rate will increase by 0.5%. And I've built in it in increments, so there will be an increase of 0.25 for Q3, and then another increment of another 0.25 for Q4. As I've highlighted several times, our 2023-2024 outlook only contains the reoccurring administration costs for operating the commission. A detailed operating budget, including transit operations, will be prepared in 2022 and presented to the board. So this is our outlook for 2022 and 2023. If you look at your screen, you'll see quite a significant increase between 2022 and 2023 as compared to 23 to 24. And that's because of the staggering of the additional 9 FTEs throughout 2022. So there are partial years cost in there, but in 2023, you have the entire year's costing for all of the staff. There are no additional capital requests for administration for 2023 to 2024, so there's no outlook for the capital piece. However, in 2022, we will be developing our asset transfer framework as part of the activity to get ready for opening day of transit service delivery. We will need to consider the transfer of assets from the municipalities into the commission. These assets could include a rolling stock, could be land, buildings, other assets, and asset reserves. A long-term capital asset funding strategy and a debt management strategy, which go hand in hand, will form the work undertaken to create the future capital budget. So to summarize, the proposed 2022 operating budget and the capital budget will enable the commission to continue to stand up the organization in advance of opening day, defining opening day service and the service delivery agreements with our member municipalities, and transition transit service delivery for both local and regional services under the EMTSC banner. Today, we are tabling a $3.643 million proposed operating and a $250,000 capital budget for 2022. In addition, our 2023-2024 outlook has been presented for board input. Thank you.
Well, Lori, thank you. It was well done. Well presented. Now, before we go into debate on this or questions and stuff like that, I suspect we should move in camera and according with the motion in front of us. Before I accept the motion and understanding that we're going to have a wholesome discussion around the budget in camera, any questions before I accept this motion? Hearing none, can I have a board member propose the motion?
Mr. Chair, I did have one.
Sorry, just a sec. Mr. Jankowski.
Sorry, I was just going to point out that Councillor Lori did have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry. Councillor Lori, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. And I would agree that was a great presentation, but I do have a question with something that we saw in the early of it in regards to bringing the budget forward in the fall of 2022 for approval. Given that there will be municipal requisition required as a part of our operating budget, and all municipal members will be going into budget in the fall of 2022, I'm actually curious as to whether we have some more defined timing on that. Several other boards, commissions, agencies, and associations that work with the municipalities typically present their budgets to their internal entities in the late summer so that they are approved and adopted in order to move forward into the corporate planning for the municipal members. So can you expand a little bit on that?
Yeah, sorry. Oh, go ahead, Paul.
Oh, you could start.
Oh, I should have put that in our presentation. We have discussed that. So as soon as we, as Paul said, there's going to be concurrent work happening in 2022. The financial analysis piece of the comparative analysis will form the basis of our budget in addition to the service delivery agreements and the asset framework. So there's a lot of that's going to happen concurrent. Our plan, and we've already discussed it, we will be building our budget in the summer, and it has to be final. We're thinking it has to be finalized by September, so it can fully be built into the proposed budgets for our member municipalities.
Excellent, thank you.
I will add a word of caution there. As you've seen in the work plan, there is a lot of work that needs to be carried out in advance of us finalizing those plans. And I think in a normal year, once we start rolling, we would absolutely be looking at issuing the requisition sort of mid-year for inclusion in the municipal consideration or preparation of draft budgets, Councillor Lori. That would certainly be our hope in subsequent years. next year is going to be an evolution. It's going to be the next step in our evolution. And one thing that I've been doing is chatting with the city managers with regards to opening up the lines of communication between our financial people, between Lori and all of the chief financial officers or treasurers at the municipal level. We may be dealing with preliminary or high level financial information by the midpoint of the year next year. We may be able to signal kind of a range that we might be looking for. I honestly believe we're going to have to see how it goes, and we'll certainly endeavor to share as much as we possibly can with our municipal colleagues throughout the year. It's going to be hard to commit to an early indication of an absolute number, given that the amount of uncertainty that exists right now and the amount of work that needs to be carried out between now and then.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Lori. Any other questions before I accept this motion? Okay, seeing none, would a board member care to advance this motion? Thank you, Councillor Finstad.
I move the board move in camera in accordance with the provisions of Division 2, exceptions to disclosure of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act, or FOIP, RSA 2000, CF 25 as per section 16 through 28.
Thank you very much. I'll call for the vote. Use the raise hand function. If I could see everybody's vote, please. And Councillor Houston, are you still on the call?
Yeah, I just got back in. I'm
Okay.
back now.
Are you in
Thank you.
favor of going in camera?
Yes, I am.
All right, fair enough. That's unanimous. Agata, if you can move us in camera.
Yes, of course. If I could just have 1 minute, please.
Of course.
Thank you.
Thanks again for that, Lori. That was well done.
Thank you.
Just for public consumption, we talked in camera about our 2022-2023 budget. We talked about our public outreach program, and we talked about financing options for 22 and 2023. Thank you. All right. So we are now reconvened in public, and we have a tabling motion. Would somebody care to make this motion?
I can read it in, Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
So I move that the board accept as information the materials and discussion as presented in camera and the proposed 2022 operating and capital budget and the 2023-24 outlook be referred to administration to address the input of the board and presented to the December 2nd, 2021 Audit and Finance Committee meeting for recommendations to the December 16th, 2021 board meeting.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lori, I accept that motion. Any opening comments on debate?
No, other than I just appreciate the information that was brought forward by administration today, and I trust that we will see our feedback reflected in the Audit and Finance Committee meeting, and look forward to being able to bring that to the board in December.
Thank you very much. Any other ones? Any other board members seeking to comment? Seeing none, let me call the question. All in favor, please raise your hand. And I see that as unanimous. Thank you very much. All right. Number 14, I'll pass this appointment of external auditor over to you, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just very briefly, because I know we are short on time, we did go through a competitive procurement process with regards to getting proposals from a number of companies to carry out our audit responsibilities. The board has a duty to appoint an auditor today at the organizational meeting for 2021 and for 2022. We've gone through an evaluation. Lori led that evaluation. If we flip to the very next slide, we did evaluate 3 proposals. We actually asked for 4. We considered one as not meeting the requirements of the commission. But when we looked at the value for money, we determined that the best overall score applied to the proposal from Metrics Group. Metrics Group has carried out or is the auditor of record for a number of smaller, I would say, municipalities, as well as a number of commissions in the area. And based on our evaluation and our familiarity with what Metrics does in other venues, the recommendation is to move forward with appointing Metrics Group to carry out the audits for fiscal 2021 and 2022.
Thank you very much. Councillor Houston.
That was my first hand holdover. Thank you.
Oh, okay, fair enough. We all have a few of those. All right, any questions on this? Seeing none, then certainly entertain a motion as it's presented here. Who would care to make that motion?
I can make that motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Houston.
I'd like to make a motion that the board approve Metrics Group LLP as the Edmonton Metropolitan Transit Service Commission auditor effective November 24th, 2021.
Thank you very much. Accept that motion. Any comments, Councillor Houston?
No.
Okay, any others wishing to weigh in on debate here? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor, please raise your virtual hand. And that's unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone. And so we have an external auditor for the commission. Here's the motion everybody's been waiting for. Just in closing, I want to thank everybody for their participation today. It was a lot of heavy lifting today. And I want to thank Paul and certainly want to thank Lori for their particular efforts in putting forward a great presentation today that allowed the board to consider the very complex information in a straightforward manner, and I appreciate that. And to Mr. Shores, thank you. We appreciate you being our legal assistance and taking us through the whole involvement in setting up the officers of this board member. Thank you so much, everybody, and I declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you. Take care, everybody.
See you all.
And good luck to all you guys on the Audit and Finance Committee. Justin, go for it, you guys.
That's the fun committee.